I'm interviewing Andy Beaudoin at his office, May 4th, 1989. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Andy, you're on. To make you immortal.
Been looking for that always.
Could you tell us something about, you came here as director. What was your official title? Director?
I think I recall it was Director of Community Services.
Well, what did that mean back then? I have a pretty good idea, but how would you define it?
Well, I came to realize what it meant. I think the definitions were not too clear at the beginning, but we were setting up a new college, and we had the academic side pretty well established with some leadership there, and then there was the adult education side that was established, and then the vocational technical side was established, and the community services, so-called, was filling in the rest. This involved seminars, workshops, short-term educational experiences for the people of the community.
What
these are short-term educational experiences for the people in the community, workshops and seminars. Your vocational education program was a long-range program. The academic program was long-range, but there was nothing to meet that short-term need of secretaries and accountants and lawyers and so forth. That's what I started with.
So what would be a typical, of course it would be non-credit, right?
Most of these were non-credit activities. They were designed to improve people in their profession. For example, accountants would come together, and we would arrange to have the IRS and representatives come and update the accountants on the new IRS rules and so forth, because these accountants were servicing their clients for tax preparation every year, and they needed an updating from the IRS. So this was an opportunity for the college to provide that kind of activity for the accountants.
So you would go out, say, with a typical accounting firm and set up a course on their premises, or?
No, what we do is we would hear from the Accountants Association that they'd like to have the college help them provide this kind of seminar, if you will, and then what we would do is meet with the accountants and find out what their needs were. And as it turned out, they indicated that they'd like to have an updating of their IRS regulations. The IRS regulations many times would be changed and updated. So what we do, once we've established the needs of the accountants, we would then go to the IRS and see if we couldn't get them to send representatives, and we meet with a committee of an IRS representative and accountants representative, and we work up the agenda. We would look at a site. Usually the sites were local hotels.
We were talking about
after meeting with a committee of IRS people and the accountants, we'd work up an agenda and then pick a site. Usually this was a motel, a hotel that had rooms. We didn't have any rooms, you see, in the new campus, so we had to find a large hall. Usually these were in Thunderbird Motel, as I recall. They had a large hall there. And after doing that, we print up a program, make it available to the community and to all the accountants, and this is essentially what then the evening or the 2 or 3 day seminar would occur, and that was it.
And you did You did this with, say, other professions?
With other professions, secretaries, updating their skills, from time to time, lawyers. Lawyers would be getting together to update themselves in state law. Various professional groups.
Okay, is that, were you any sort of publicity man or anything like that besides this,
Yes.
this kind of thing?
That was another hat that I wore. The community services put me in a situation where I had to perform two functions. One was the seminar function with professional groups, and the other one was to do the PR for the college. So I wore two hats.
Tell me an interesting story as a PR man.
Well, we
Sort of highlights that
yeah.
period.
At the very beginning, we wanted to get the community to know what the offerings were at the college. So we thought that it might be a good idea to approach the Florida Times Union to see if we couldn't get a public service announcement of some kind to help us get word out to the community of what the offerings were at the very beginning when the college started. And so we were all set to begin in the fall of 1966, and all of the offerings had been printed. We tried to disseminate as many of these as we could, as many of these brochures as we could. So I decided to call on the Times Union people, and I got to the second in command over there and asked him if we couldn't get a public service announcement. And so it turned out, as a result of that meeting, that we were able to get a full-page free advertisement from the Florida Times Union to help us disseminate the information to the general public about our first year offering.
Well, I'd like to see them do that for us today.
Today that wouldn't be feasible. We were new, and they were interested in getting the college off the ground, I'm sure. So this was helpful.
What was that called? A free full-page?
Free full-page ad of the public service announcement of the. So we had all of our course listings, just like you see in the general newspaper that we put out now.
Did you run into any problems or anything that stands out in your mind as a PR man or as a seminar man that you?
Oh yes, we would run into from time to time. You know, in the PR area, you hope to get out the word that will be beneficial to the college and to the cause that you are working for. And this wasn't always the case. We'd have some instances where the best face of the college was not portrayed, and we tried to overcome that and try to, as best we could, to try to balance the picture of the college as much as possible. In one instance, we had a student who decided to write a column in the local newspaper, and his column was not always beneficial to the college. It tended to be skewed in terms of his own opinion. And I think he was looking at some problems that we had, and this didn't help the image of the college too much. So we tried to offset that. We tried to overcome it.
How'd you do that?
Well, with counter publicity, to get a bigger picture, to get a broader picture of what was happening in the area of curriculum and so forth. And but there weren't too many problems. Most of it was very positive. Most of the publicity that we got was very good. We were getting an awful lot of publicity to college.
This is in 66, 67?
67, yeah. And in the seminar area, the time that we couldn't devote enough time to it because the staff was limited. I was the only one doing that work. And And we had one or two clerks helping out, and that was our limitation there. So we couldn't service all of the needs that we had requested of us.
What were some, in the first year of the college, what were some perceptions in the community that you ran across that you, positive, negative, misperceptions, overperceptions, anything you want to say there? What?
That's a good question because we react to perceptions a lot. I'd say from the general public, there was a hopefulness about the college that I ran into. They wanted this college to succeed, and there was another perception that that perceived the college as somewhat of a threat to the existing Jacksonville University institution here. And there was a feeling that maybe we would cut into some of their programs and so forth. But these perceptions were soon resolved, I think, because it turned out that the community college here was responding to a need that had not been responded to before, and we were not, taking away students from any other institution. So these threats, I think, were short-lived. These perceptions were short-lived. Generally, I think the general perception was that the college was a good thing for the community, and they wanted it to succeed.
Tell me some good things about Bruce Wilson.
Wilson? I'm not going to ask you that. Well, Dr. Wilson was wanted desperately for the college to succeed. I think he wanted to provide a need here, and he signed up for this job, and he wanted to make it successful. And I think that his enthusiasm for his work and his hopefulness for the success of the institution prevailed pretty much. And sometimes when you hope too much to make a success of things, you probably tend to create some problems. So there were some problems that were created as a result of that. But his intent was to make the college succeed.
Did you came here with him from where?
Brevard,
yeah.
Junior College.
What were you down there?
There, I was the PR person.
And let's see, was OR down there too?
Finch, and Joel Finch, and Haynes,
yeah.
and Pat Hodgkins, registrar that we have.
And Shoot Howell, where did he come from?
Shoot Howell.
Was he
yes, he was. He had come to Brevard. Yeah, he was an early administrator here in the area of finance, I think.
Do you spell his name with two P's?
I don't know.
You spell with one P and two P's and an E.
Really?
I've got to check that.
Yeah.
We wanted to mention all the first. You were one of the first 7, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Andy, in your long time here, 23 years now, what is the biggest change from your point of view that you've seen?
Well, I think I've seen a settling down of the institution into a consistent pattern. which is beneficial to the community, I think. I think this is true of any new venture that starts out. It's going to have a rocky road at the beginning, and then you'll run into some problems, and these problems will eventually get resolved, and then eventually we'll settle down into a routine, which is perceived to be the best strategy to follow. And I think we're into this now.
Could you be a little bit more specific there? What?
Well, I think that in growing from a single campus institution to a multi-campus institution, for example, there are problems that result that are that could be predicted, and we experienced these problems as we were growing. And now that we have plateaued, if you will, into an enrollment that is pretty consistent, and we do have our multi-campus institution pretty well established now, that there are no new wrenching problems that are affecting the institution so much as they used to.
When you were at Brevard, did the seven of you and Dr. Wilson sit down and kind of anticipate what the problems would be, or was there any strategy there?
There in Brevard,
knowing you were coming up here, did you sit down and say, we're going to have this problem, we're going to counter it with this strategy?
No, I didn't sit on any sessions like that.
You didn't have any. Did you plan any sort of way you were going to? Well, of course, you said you were going to set up this side and that side and that side. Did you have any overall strategic your plan?
No, not that I didn't sit in on any long range plans. I think that in my area, I met with the president and pretty well established what we would be doing in the area of community services, which I perceived to be a continuation of what I was doing in Brevard. Now, once the staff was together here, I'm sure that there must have been some, formal meeting as to what strategy would be followed.
So your role pretty much was to continue your job at Brevard, translate that up here. Yeah.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was a staff person, not a line person. So the line people met in administrative councils, whereas my being a staff person, I pretty well carried on a function that I.
What about your perceptions of things as an administrator and then as a faculty member? Any differences there over the years that you have one?
Yeah, I think the administrative side at the beginning of the college tended to have a narrower vision of what the faculty rights and responsibilities were. And now that vision has changed a little bit. It's become more liberal, more open. And I think that's true of any organization that begins anyway, because the people in the leadership will have a course laid out pretty well as to where they want to go. And the staff pretty well has to follow that course. And then once the course is established, then there's an opening up, recognizing what the needs and the rights of faculty are.
So
I think we tended to be a little bit narrow at the beginning.
one theme that kind of comes through from the old people, but the
People who started out.
You couldn't be that democratic in the beginning. There had to be a central unity, and there's a lot to that.
Mm-hmm. And the people who, I guess, the people who are most affected by that are those who want the democracy, and that is the faculty. Of course, in retrospect, we could have been more open about faculty senates and faculty needs and so forth, but we weren't.
And still not sacrifice the unity, you think, or
without endangering the mission of the college. But these things are easily said in retrospect.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. What about students, Jeannie, over the years? What's the biggest change you've seen in the classroom? Say you started in '73, 74.
Yeah, right.
This is 16 years now. Have you seen any changes there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I see the students more selectively placed than they used to be, according to their academic preparation, which has made it easier for a lot of students because before we didn't have academic placement, and this tended to create many fallouts, if you will, and a lot of disappointment on the part of a lot of students. And now we are placing them more effectively than we ever have, and this is showing up in our plan.
How, for example?
The people are more academically prepared for the coursework than they used to be because of that. And so the expectations are fulfilled more so than they used to be. The expectations on the part of the professor for the student. Whereas before, the dropout rate was pretty high because there was no placement.
Do you see any changes in your own teaching technique over the years?
No, I don't. I still have expectations, college level, first year, second year expectations of students, and those are maintained. And they're being more and more fulfilled, as I see it, by students. Is that probably a test?
I've got a feeling I'm going to have to go up to Radio Shack today. We've covered some waterfront here.
Probably a lot of material that I've talked about or you've already heard, maybe.
No, some of this, like the Thunderbird Motel, where you had your, so that's new.
Yeah, sometimes a bank would let us have a hall, a bank would let us have their hall, their meeting room. Any place that we could find, we didn't have any facilities, you see.
No.
And as a result, when you have a large group of people, about a couple of hundred people, with a meal thrown in, you have to go to a place where they can cater.
Any special remembrances of any particular person in a positive way, student that stands out in that, or a colleague, or just anybody over the years that you'll never forget?
Not really. There's nothing startling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to put out for posterity?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
That's about it?
Okay.
Okay. I hope this thing takes.